Good morning and welcome to another episode of OT Investigates. In today's episode, we're going to be doing a sort of quick update video on the GW Finance video that I did a couple of months ago. GW have just released their 2023 annual financial report, and so we're just going to be adding to what we had last time and looking at whether the things I thought might happen have happened, whether it's gone better, gone worse, or whatever. So first things first, I'm going to go through the structure of this video. It's going to be split into three sections, which will be similar to last time. We're going to talk about what's going well for GW, what's perhaps not going so well, and then what I think might happen in the future. As you might be able to tell from some of the predictions I made last time, don't really have a clue what's going on about, so maybe don't put too much weight on those predictions. So what's going well? Profits continue to increase. So GW's revenue and profit both went up compared to last year. In 2022, as you can probably see from this graph, they made 386.8 million. In this year, 2023, they made 445 million. Profit went up as well. So in 2022, it was 157.1 million. In 2023, it was 170.2 million. You can see both of those labeled on the graph here. So not massive increases, but definitely noticeable, and yeah, always going to be a positive sign when you're making more money. So next thing, stores. I wasn't quite sure what's going to happen with the stores, but as you can see from this image here, it's gone pretty well. They opened more than they closed. It's interesting to see where they've been opening and closing them. So nothing happened in the UK. North America, again, I mentioned last time there was a big push in North America. That seems to be continuing. Opened 8 and only closed 1, which is a really good sign. I think for a long time it's been part of GW's plan to try and push more into North America, and they actually have significantly more stores there than in the UK, and actually more than in Europe as well. Europe also went better than last time. I wasn't sure, so I talked a bit about the costs associated with Brexit and stuff like that and whether that would affect trade. It's not a massive change, but yeah, they have opened more than they've closed, which is a good sign. Australia stayed pretty neutral, and then in Asia, which isn't a great sign, fewer have been opened than closed, and I'll come on to that a bit more later on. Next thing, their independent retailers, so the people they work with and sell their product to, has also increased. It's jumped up from about 6,200 in 2022 to 6,500 in 2023. So again, another increase, which is really good to see. And that's also come with a bit of an increase in these market shares. You can see here. So when we're looking at the sort of comparison of Games Workshop sources of revenue, you can see in this graph here. Now, last time I made the prediction that the Games Workshop stores would carry on decreasing. I wasn't massively off, but I was a bit wrong here. They have actually increased a little bit, and actually they kind of reached a little bit of an equilibrium with the Games Workshop online stores. But yeah, the independent retailers continue to increase, with 56% of GW's revenue coming from those independent retailers. 24% coming from the Games Workshop stores and 20% coming from Games Workshop online. So that's the stuff that's going well. The stuff that's perhaps not going so well is, while GW have made more profit than they have ever made before, that does come with the caveat that with in cost of living crisis at the moment and inflation is extremely high. What that does is, I'll put the two images for you up here now. I'll put their profit, but I'll also put the graph when it has been adjusted for inflation. And what you can see is that increase suddenly becomes kind of a plateau and arguably a little bit of a decrease. So if we are to adjust their revenue and profit for inflation, there's actually a very minimal decrease compared to last year. So revenue actually went down by 600,000 if we adjust for inflation, and it stayed almost identical for their adjusted profit. Okay? So while the sort of amount of money they're making has increased, when it is adjusted for inflation, that does cause a little bit of a plateau. Again, this isn't a huge problem. They're still massively profitable. You know, a company that is making a profit of over £170 million a year is clearly doing something right. Next thing, the infrastructure investment has dropped compared to last year, and I can't work out why this is. They're making a load of money, but for whatever reason, they have moved away from investing quite so heavily in infrastructure. I'll flash up an image for you now, but in 2022, it was 17.7 million. In 2023, it was 14.6 million. Now, this is slightly different to my previous video because the way they've reported things has changed. Which makes it harder to sort of compare year on year. But yeah, this is sort of the difference. There has been an infrastructure investment drop, and I can't understand why that is when they're making as much money as they are. Obviously, they're going through a warehouse change and stuff like that at the moment, so maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, it does just seem like a strange decision to not continue to invest in infrastructure when that's served them so well. The other two things, sort of more specific, these two, not really more general things, but they've had to let their Russian language translation team go. Obviously, they never could have seen this one coming, and that's nothing they could have done about this. And it's very sad for the people who've had to be let go. But yeah, there's no sign of the conflict ending anytime soon, so it's not financially sound for GW to continue to hold on to these people. The other thing is China. Now, I did raise some questions last time about China, and they've not really been answered as far as I can tell. There's only one reference to the Chinese market in the entire GW financial report. And that's to do with something called a China Compulsory Certificate, which is basically a safety certificate that says your products are safe to be sold on the Chinese market and that they approve of them. The fact that this is the only reference in an entire year to what is a huge market doesn't seem like a very good thing. It may be that this is a really, I don't know the ins and outs of this. I don't know how hard it is to get hold of one of these. And maybe it has been a real barrier to them investing in sort of selling in China. But there was a real push to sell in China a few years ago, but the fact the only thing you've been able to obtain in a year is a safety certificate doesn't suggest that it's going to be a huge market for you anytime soon. Final thing is just on the store openings, I'm still slightly unclear as to what their strategy is going forward. So I'll flash up an image for you now, but basically what has happened in the last few years is it seemed like GW is leaning more and more towards these single staff models. Now, that doesn't quite hold up in sort of the data. There has been a slight increase in multi-staff stores, but again, it's all sort of within bounds that you would expect. But there is a quote in GW's financial report that says, our new store openings will continue to follow our single staff model where appropriate. We'll continue to review the format stores pragmatically, monitor transaction count carefully, and add temporary staff to support the store manager where needed. So it seems that the plan going forward might be for more of these single staff stores. And again, I don't know what the purpose of these stores is going to be. I think it is strange that they are so heavily focused on making them profitable. I think personally it would be a really good idea to enlarge them a bit, make them more of a sort of social space where people can come in regularly and enjoy the hobby. Because it doesn't seem like that is the plan going forward, and that does seem like a shame, because the hobby isn't just about getting introduced to the models and stuff like that and the paints and everything. It's also about hanging out with other people who have the same hobby and the same passions and talking about stuff and playing games. And it doesn't seem like these single staff, these smaller stores are set up for that part of the hobby, which is a huge part of it and is really important. So the fact that GW isn't willing to spend resources on supporting that does seem like a really strange decision. So what's going to happen going forward? There is no reason I can see that GW will not continue to be massively profitable. Profits have stagnated a little bit when you consider inflation, but inflation has been absolutely rampant. I don't think you can hold that against them at all. I think they've actually, again, done really, really well. The fact that they have, all their own money, this is just pure profit that they're making, is really good. And they are feeding some of that back to their staff as well with regular bonuses and stuff like that for when the company's performing well. It does seem like really good decisions are being made there. Investment in infrastructure, slight blip in the last year. Don't really know why that's happened. But before, they were obviously putting a lot of their money into that infrastructure, and I think it would probably be a good idea to continue doing that, keep investing for the future. In terms of stores, it looks like, there's been a slight increase. It's not a massive increase, and it's interesting where those are happening. But again, just expect to see a continued push in North America, possibly finally the start of the push in China happening with that certificate they've been able to obtain, but I don't really know. And then, finally, for the sources of revenue, I would expect it to kind of stagnate from here. Independent retailers, I imagine, will continue to increase quite slowly, and then maybe you just see the other two slightly decrease. But I think the major drop-off has probably occurred now, and I don't know how much further it will realistically drop. Great. Well, thank you for listening. Obviously, these reports only come out once a year, so I imagine these will only come out once a year just after they drop their reports. But hopefully that's all made sense. If you've got any predictions, anything that you think is going to happen that you know better than me, absolutely drop them in the comments below. I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just going through the data I can see and reading through the financial reports each year. Drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. It does really help. And looking forward to see you for the next one.